Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope you're doing fine. Today we're going to study a grammar lesson which is reporting. It's the reported speech, but this time it's going to be reporting questions you have already seen with another lesson how to report, okay, statements. Now we're going to see how to report questions. So this is our objective, is to be able to report questions, okay, to talk about issues related to international organizations, okay. So first I would like to have a review with you to see the changes that occur when we want to report what people said. So in the previous lesson you have seen, for example, are planning in the present continuous became were planning with the reporting verb said. You have seen have already bought, which became had already bought, okay, with the reporting verb said again. Past simple, two verbs organized and worked, they have become had organized, had worked, okay. And finally you have seen will, future, that became would, okay. So I repeat, so if you look here we have are, it became were, have already, had already, organized and worked in the past became had organized, had worked with the reporting verb added, and finally would, that became would. So in general, the picture, to have a clear picture here, is that we're going backward to the past. We're always going backward, okay? Are, were, have, had organized, will, would. You have also seen changes that occur in time expressions. For example, today, do you remember what happens to today when we want to report? That day. So if someone says, I'm doing something today, when we report we say that day. Now, then, or at that moment, yesterday, the day before, tomorrow, the day after or the next day, here, place expression there, and this, that, and finally these, they become, it becomes those. All right. So this was just a review of the previous lesson. Today we're going to focus on questions. So before we start, I would like to ask you 3 questions, since these days we have a problem, an international problem, which is the coronavirus. The question is, where did the coronavirus come from? Where did the coronavirus come from? Like, what is the origin of this virus? Do you know? That's the first question. The second one, how can I protect myself from a coronavirus? How can we protect ourselves? That's number 2. And number 3, is there a treatment? Is there a cure? Is there a vaccine for this virus? So 3 questions. Where did the virus come from? How can I protect myself? And is there a treatment for the virus? I'll let you think. We're going to read an interview, okay, an adapted extract from an interview with Dr. Maria van Kerkhove from the World Health Organization. So this is an international organization, okay, that deals with health, about the coronavirus. And I want you to see if your answers, the answers that you have, match with her answers. Now let's see the dialogue. So the journalist's question, where did the coronavirus come from? Where did the coronavirus come from? So the doctor, Maria van Kerkhove, said the virus came from animals. Question number 2, how can I protect myself from a coronavirus? Doctor, we recommend washing hands with soap and water, sneezing, to sneeze, sneezing into our elbow, that's number 2, and number 3, avoiding unnecessary and unprotected contact with live animals. So 3 recommendations from the World Health Organization. Washing hands with soap and water, sneezing into our elbow, and avoiding contact with live animals. 3rd question, is there a treatment for the virus? The doctor, there are no specific treatments for coronaviruses, unfortunately, but the symptoms can be treated. Okay, so this was the conversation or the interview between the journalist and the doctor. Now, okay, I want you to read part number 2, okay, which is an article written by the journalist. Okay, let's read a part of the article that the journalist wrote about his interview with the doctor and underline the reported questions. Now, how did the journalist report his own questions? What did he say in his article? Let's go. So this is the beginning of his article. In order to get exact information about the coronavirus, this is the journalist talking here, I interviewed Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, who works at the World Health Organization. I asked her where the coronavirus had come from, how I could protect myself from the virus, and I also asked her if there was a treatment for the virus. Now, I want you to underline his own questions, how he reported his own questions. Let's see. So, of course, the questions are at the end of the paragraph, starting from the middle. We have, I asked her where the coronavirus had come from, how I could protect myself from the virus, and finally, I also asked her I asked her if there was a treatment for the virus. Now check with me again, please. Let's focus on each question separately. So check with me. In the interview, the journalist said, where did the coronavirus come from? In his report, I asked her where the coronavirus had come from. I repeat, where did the coronavirus come from? The question is in the past, as you see, did, and the report, I asked her where the coronavirus had come from. Let's move to the second question. How can I protect myself from a coronavirus? How can I protect myself from a coronavirus? In his report, I asked her how I could protect myself from a coronavirus. See the how can I, how I could, how can I, it's a question, but here we are not asking a question. How I could protect myself from the coronavirus. Let's go to the third question. Is there a treatment for the virus? Is there a treatment for the virus? Now, in his report, I also asked her if there was, question, is there, if there was a treatment for the virus. Okay, now we will have a task here. We want you in this task to match, okay, the beginning of the sentences with their appropriate endings. So we will have beginnings and endings, and we want you to match them. Let's see with the first one. What measures will the UNICEF take to protect children? This is a question. What measures will the UNICEF take to protect children? Emma said. Now Emma wanted to know what measures. Let's go to the right column. Emma wanted to know what measures could ask for help from the UNICEF, or had any more questions, or would the UNICEF take to protect the children. Okay, So if you look here, what measures will the UNICEF take to protect children? The right answer would be normally C, okay? Because we have will, okay? Will the UNICEF take? And we have would the UNICEF take to protect children, to protect the children. That's the first one. Let's go to the second. Can countries ask for help from the UNICEF? Can countries ask for help from the UNICEF? Peter said. Now Peter asked again. You see the reporting verb asked because it's a question. Peter asked if countries A or B now, if countries could ask for help or had any more questions. Of course, in the context here we're talking about help. So Peter asked if countries could ask for help from the UNICEF. Okay? Number 3. Do you have any more questions? The president of the World Bank said to the journalists, he said, do you have any more questions? The president of the World Bank asked the journalists if they, okay, the left one is had any more questions. Now let's check again. So the first one is C, and C, please, the changes. What measures will the UNICEF, and here would the UNICEF. See the change, please. Will, would. Number 2. Can countries ask for help? Can countries ask for help? And here we have Peter asks if countries could ask. So C, can, could, will, would. And finally, number 3, do you have any more questions? Do you have any more questions? So do you have the verb, as you see here, have, and then had. So let's move on with another task. We are going to have some questions, okay, in the direct speech, and we want you to choose the right answer. So we have a question here, number 1. How can I work at an international organization? How can I work at an international organization? Mehdi said to his teacher. He said to his teacher, how can I work at an international organization? Now the answer. Is it A, Mehdi asked his teacher how he can work at an international organization? Or Mehdi asked his teacher how he could work at an international organization? What do you think? Is it how he can or how he could? Of course, the answer will be how he could. Of course, because here we have can and it's going to become could. Let's move on to the second one. Did you read the latest report of the United Nations? Did you read the latest report of the United Nations? The questions, of course, is in the past. And if you remember in the review, we said the past becomes past perfect. Let's go. A. Asma asked Sarah if she had read the latest report of the United Nations, if she had read, or B. Asma asked Sarah if she read. So is it if she read, past simple, or if she had read, past perfect? Okay? Yes, you're right. It's going to be had read, past perfect. Very good. So just again, so can, could, and did you read in the past is going to be had read. Okay? Another thing which is very important is that if you look at number 2, did you read? When we say, did you read? Do you have? The answer here is either yes or no. That's why these kinds of questions, we call them yes-no questions or direct questions, because the answer is always yes or no. So when we have a yes-no question, did you read? Look at the answer. Asma asked if. So, did you? she asked her if, because it's a direct question. But if we look at number 1, how? The answer here is not yes or no, because how can I? So the answer would be to give some explanation. So it's not yes or no. So here, as you see, the answer is Mehdi asks his teacher how. There is no if here. Okay, let's move on. In this task, there are some mistakes. Okay, I want you please to try to see where the mistake is and correct it, of course. Let's check the first one. Are all countries able to borrow money from the World Bank? I repeat, are all countries able to borrow money from the World Bank? Miriam wrote. So this is the direct speech. Indirect speech now. Miriam wanted to know if, here, is it correct to use if here? Is it a yes, no question? Are all countries able to borrow money from the World Bank? The answer would be, of course, yes or no. So yes, if is okay here. So Miriam wanted to know if were all countries able to borrow money from the World Bank. So what is the problem here? See that here we have are and here we have were. So we moved to the past. But what is the problem here? If were all countries able to borrow? Okay, what is the problem? So the problem here is that are all countries, are you, is he, is she? This is called inversion. So we use inversion when we are asking a question. That's why we have the inversion. Are you here? Are you sick? Did you? Okay, have you finished? Have you? Normally it's you have, but we say have you because it's a question. But when we report, are we asking a question? We're not. So normally, when we are not asking a question, there is no need for an inversion. So the problem here is because we are using were and then all countries. Were and then all countries. So in the reported speech, we need to go back to the first form, to the original form. Okay? So Miriam wanted to know if. So that's the problem. If all countries were, not if were all countries. If all countries were able to borrow money from the bank. Let's go to the next one. B. Question. Has the United Nations got a Facebook account? Has the United Nations got a Facebook account? Ali said. So, Ali asked, see again verb asked, it's a question. Is it a yes no question here? Has the United Nations got a Facebook account? Yes or no? So, logically, we should have if. So, Ali asked if had the United Nations got a Facebook account. See that the person who wanted to report this question has used the past. So from has the United Nations got into had. It's okay. But what is the problem again? See in the previous one, in A, we had the problem of inversion. So we invert has the United Nations because it is a question. But here, are we asking a question when we report? We are not asking a question, we are reporting a question. So again, the problem of inversion. We should remove the inversion. So normally, this is the problem. Had the United Nations. So this person kept the same structure, had and the United Nations, while we should go back to the origin. Okay? So Ali asked if the United Nations had. So the subject first, then the verb. Let's move on to the number 3 or the letter C. What time will the press conference start? What time will the press conference start? I have a question for you here. Is this a yes no question? Shall we use if here? What time will the press conference start? Can I answer with yes or with no? What do you think? What time? No. So if I ask you what time, you need to give me the time. So there is no yes or no here. Hence, there is no if. So a journalist asked what time the press conference will start. what time the press conference will start. See here that what time will the press conference, and the person who reported said will start. So the problem would be in will. We need to change will. And do you remember what happens to will? Okay, so when somebody says I will, we should say he said that he would. All right? Now it's your turn, guys. We have three. First one is a question, second is a question, and the third one is a question. Okay? 3 questions. And I would like you to report these questions. Number 1, have the guests arrived? Very short, very clear. Have the guests arrived? The director said to his secretary. The director said to his secretary. So the director asked, of course, because it's a question. He asked who? So he asked, of course, his secretary. Is it a yes/no question? Have the guests arrived? Yes, it's a yes/no question. So if. So he asked the secretary if the guests, very good, had arrived. Number 2, how is the world going to solve this environmental problem? How is the world going to solve this environmental problem? One of the participants said, is it a yes/no question? We have how. It's not a yes/no question, so there is no if. So how is the world going to solve? One of the participants asks. So he asks what? He asks how is the word is. So we have inversion. So we go back. How the world first, the world, the subject, and then is how the world was going to solve the environmental problem, okay? Or environmental problems. How, first how, then the world first, the world, and then is turns into was going to solve environmental problems. And number 3, will the Prime Minister attend the summit? Will the Prime Minister attend? Attend is to be present. Will the Prime Minister attend the summit? Journalists asked, is it a yes/no question? Will the Prime Minister attend the summit? Yes, it's a yes/no question. So normally we're going to use if. So will the Prime Minister attend? Journalists asked, or journalists wanted to know. They wanted to know yes/no question if. Shall we start with will or the Prime Minister? We start with the Prime Minister. So if the Prime Minister, and then will, what happens to will? Would. Very good. If the Prime Minister would attend the summit. Okay? I hope everything was clear. Now I'm going to give you a homework. Okay? I want you please to watch conferences or interviews of international organizations, officials, people who represent international organizations. So you watch interviews or their conferences, press conferences, and you try to report the questions the journalists asked them. Okay? Try to report what the journalists asked them. And that's it for today. Thank you so much, guys. Hope the lesson was clear, and good luck. See you.